All right, so now we have to go into dividing complex numbers. So first we talk about what are conjugates. So if I have a number a plus bi, the conjugate is a minus bi. So for example, the way that we write it is if we have a complex number z, we draw a little bar on the top to denote the conjugate. So it's not really the opposite. The only thing that you're doing here is making the imaginary part the opposite. So if I had 2 plus 3i, that is really going to be 2 minus 3i when I do the conjugate. If I have just a plain 5i, that's going to be minus 5i. If I have 7, now there's no imaginary part to that number, so the conjugate is still just 7. Or you could think of it like 7 plus 0i. Well, that's the same as 7 minus 0i. So if I had negative 5 minus 2i, that complex number, the conjugate would be minus 5 plus 2i. Okay, so this is important because when you divide, you need to use those. So for example, let's say I have 16 plus 11i, and in the denominator I have 5 minus 2i. Okay, what I need to do is I need to get rid of, instead of thinking of dividing, think about kind of like rationalizing. You're trying to get rid of the I in the denominator. And so we do a very similar thing to rationalizing. We multiply by a fancy 1. That fancy 1 is going to be the conjugate of the denominator. So the denominator's conjugate would be 5 plus 2i. And so to make this a fancy 1, I need 5 plus 2i on top. Now dividing is more work because I have this times this on top, and now I have this times this on the bottom. So I'm going to be multiplying, foiling out, distributing out the tops and the bottoms separately. And so because when in doubt you should write it out, I am going to write out the top here very clearly. And I will do the wind and the wave. So 16 times 5 is 80. And 16 times 2i is 32i. On the other side I have 55i, and then I have 22i squared. I'll circle that. So when I work that out, I have 80 plus 87i, and this will turn into a negative 22. So really on top I have 58 plus 87i. Alright, so if I write my answer up here, I will just write that much. Okay, we still have to work out the bottom, so I'm going to write BOT here, bot, and we're going to multiply out the bottom. So first I'm going to do 5 times 5, and then 5 times 2i. That'd be 25 plus 10i. On the bottom here, that would be a negative 10i, and then a negative 4i squared. So this is really nice because when we add down, we have canceling i's there. And then we just have minus 4 times negative 1, which turns out to be positive 5. Sorry, not positive 5, positive 4, because you are multiplying. Negative 4 times negative 1. So downstairs we have 29. Now, you might remember that I had talked to you about the butterfly rule, and it is legal to divide this fraction or simplify those fractions if both of the wings are divisible, if both could reduce. So on the left side, 58 divided by 29 is 2. And 87 divided by 29, I know, is 3. So if I take 16 plus 11i, and I divide by 5 minus 2i, I get this number here. Now, what if it doesn't come out evenly? For example, if I have 17 plus 3i all divided by 5. Now that is okay. Well, the way that we would write it is to separate it into two fractions with the same denominator. And then we put an I there. So this is the a plus bi form. And the book will probably write most of its complex answers like this. So just be aware of that. And there is one more thing I need to warn you about. When you start this assignment, you're going to be tempted to do one of my no-nos. 2 plus I squared. This is not the same as 2 squared plus I squared. 4 plus -1. It is not 3. You would have to take this and write it out as 2 plus I, 2 plus I. So if we FOIL that out, that would be 4 plus 4i plus I squared. And so really, you're going to end up with 3 plus 4i. Just be aware you need to write it out. And if there is a 2 plus I cubed, same thing. You got to have this multiplied 3 times.